Hi, everyone. It's Jeff Steck here from Tylerica Marketing Systems in Austin, Texas. And as usual, we have Ken Tucker and Paul Barthel from Changescape Web and Ian Cantle from Outsource Marketing joining me today on today's podcast. Today, we're going to dig into artificial intelligence and specifically how you can integrate AI into small business marketing. So it seems that everyone's talking about AI these days. You're probably getting bombarded with emails or seeing things on Facebook. So what we want to do here is demystify it a little bit and talk about some of the practical applications you can use today. So before we get into that, there's just a couple of baseline definitions I want to get out of the way. First of all, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence in the broad general sense is just the simulation of human intelligence in machines. And if you look hard, you can tell that it's not a true human there. ChatGPT is what you probably heard the most about. And if you played around with it any amount of time, you can see that the writing all starts to sound the same. So it's basically a machine that's programmed to think and learn like humans. And it's fairly limited. As amazing as it seems, there are tasks it doesn't do well at. The artificial intelligence is really focused on specific types of things like visual perception, speech recognition, writing, decision making, language translation. And within those lanes, it does very well. But when you start to talk about going broader, you're talking about artificial general intelligence, and that's an overall AI that is essentially as intelligent as the average human, can handle all the tasks, has all the knowledge, all the insights that the average human would have. And then artificial superintelligence is years out. There's debate about how many, but artificial superintelligence is when the AI surpasses the human's capability in terms of speed, in terms of comprehension, in terms of insight. So I think we're quite a ways away from that. There's a lot going on in AI, and we're pushing close to general intelligence, but that's kind of where we are today. So with all that said, let's dig in and get into our discussions. Our first round of questions is on the topic of AI fundamentals for small businesses. So, Paul, given the definitions that I just kind of ran through and where we are today, why should small business owners care about AI?
Well, a few reasons, but let's start with look. AI is a language model. Okay, that's all it is. It's a computerized language model. Um, so it can help you automate tasks, and AI has been around for quite some time. We've all interacted with it with bots on websites, but it can help people through the buyer journey. That they can go to your website. Maybe they're not ready to talk to anyone yet, and sure, they could click around on your website. They have questions, they could click around, or they could just click on that little AI driven chatbot and get answers to their questions. And that's, from a chatbot standpoint. I think from an automation standpoint, it's AI to a certain degree, but you're really billing it. It's not really dynamic AI, but it can help. Like we talked about on other podcasts, a missed call text back. Someone calls, you're a small business, you only have one person in the office, they can't answer the phone. So someone called, obviously they want to talk to someone, so you can send back a text or an email or whatever saying, hey, sorry, we missed your call. We'll get back to you within 20 minutes or however you want to phrase that. And so it can help with a lot of things like that. But I don't want to get too deep in here because we have limited time today. So I think those are
This is
the
a
high level.
topic that could easily go on for days.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, I think one of the things you hit the nail on the head was it's a language model. It's based on data that already exists or existed at some point in the past. So it's not necessarily current and up to date, and it's trained on some set of data. That's the artificial intelligence baseline definition. There's things you can ask it; it may not know. It's not going to know about your website. It's not going to know about your competitors' websites unless you train it, unless you point it there. So. So, Ian, let's move on to a question for you. How can AI help small businesses compete with larger companies?
Yeah, I think even before I kind of elaborate on some of those specific things, I think it's important, and I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. AI at this point is a tool, right? It's a tool that your business can use, and just like any other tool, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, some of the other publicly accessible AIs out there, they're not a cohesive artificial intelligence. They're separate entities that companies have set up, right? So I just want people who are listening just to feel like, or to get an understanding that we're not talking about this global artificial intelligence. We're talking about, very selective companies that have built it out far enough that you're now able to use it in a tool fashion. And ChatGPT by far is the most popular and accessible one, where you can ask it questions or give it tasks and it will try to do them. But again, just like any other tool, it can be an entire waste of your time if you don't know why you're using the tool. But some things that it's really, really good at that can help you compete with larger businesses are, first of all, data. It is extremely good at looking at large amounts of data and connecting dots. And I think that's one of the hardest things that small businesses have or have trouble with traditionally is, first of all, in order for that to be valuable, you have to collect the data. If you're a small business and you're not collecting the data, the AI might be able to help you with general direction, if it's been trained enough in your particular industry, in your particular area. But again, you have to really train it, like what you were talking about, Jeff. It's a challenge. And if you so I would just say, first of all, AI is kind of like a rudimentary worker for you at this point. It's not like when we think about artificial intelligence from science fiction, we think, hey, go ahead and run an ad campaign for me, Siri. That's not how it works. It's not super smart. It's not super intelligent. It's a tool that you have to direct. I kind of equate it to almost like having like if you have a junior marketer on staff, and you're a small business and that's the only marketing personnel you have, you as the owner are responsible to give that junior person direction. You have to point them at, here's strategically what you should be doing. Otherwise, they're just going to be doing a lot of activity that may or may not have any true impact on your business. And so I see that an awful lot with AI right now. People are spending lots of energy playing with it, and even churning out a bunch of stuff. But it's not a lot. It's not very strategic. So AI can help with repetitive tasks. If there's something that you do a lot of, potentially, and I'm going to say potentially a lot in this conversation, potentially it could or can help. The key to remember is that, if you've played with tools like Claude or ChatGPT, it's a chat bot essentially, right? It's a smart one. You're asking it, how do I do this, or act as an SEO expert and tell me this. But until it's actually integrated into the tools you use as a business, it's not super effective. It can help equip you with some knowledge. It can even help create some content. But you have to have the smarts in order to know, how do I use that content? How do I implement that content? So I think from a small business competing with large business standpoint, there's things it can do. It can help you, look at data. It can help you enhance some of your targeting and your personalization if the tools that you use do it. Otherwise, you're going to have to manually take the information out of ChatGPT or Claude and put it into those tools, right? So, from my perspective, and maybe you guys feel the same way, maybe you don't. I feel like we're just at the cusp of how AI can dramatically impact us. And for small businesses, I see a lot of potential. I see so much potential in some of the fields that we work in, like dentistry. I was at a dental trade show recently, and they're talking about how AI is going to be incorporated in some of the imaging diagnostic tools and stuff like that, where it will help a dentist diagnose whether a cavity is there or whether a cavity isn't there, because sometimes it's hard to tell from diagnostic imaging. So some of that stuff is really exciting. And then from a marketing perspective, I think there's lots of opportunity, but I still see some small businesses jumping in and trying to use these tools without hiring or engaging somebody with true marketing expertise, and I see a lot of activity, I see a lot of content development, but I don't see a lot of strategic direction, which is going to actually help their business. So I still feel like it's a little bit of a shiny object right now, and a very big one. Any thoughts on that, guys?
No.
I think it's a tool, is right on. A tool can be used very effectively. A tool can be used ineffectively, wrong, or it can be abused. I had a networking contact I had coffee with the other day, and he asked me, he said, "Do you think ChatGPT is cheating?" And I looked at him, I said, "I don't know, is the calculator cheating?" It's just a tool that you can use and make parts of your life better, if you will. And I think the parts and what it can do will be expanding. But yeah, the other thing you said is that's worth noting is there are a small number of very big companies with deep pockets that are really driving everything behind the scenes, right? You've got OpenAI, you've got Microsoft, you've got who's behind Claude, Anthropic, Google. They're all working their own AI system. It's not like every AI that you see, every tool you see advertised has their own AI system, because AI is very expensive, the training part of it. And what that means is all these companies that you're seeing coming out are essentially working off of a small number of databases, platforms, AI models. But their value add is if they use multiple ones and how they stitch it all together. So you got to know what you're looking for. You got to know what you want to get out of it. I think you're right on there, Ian.
Ian, don't you think that we're already living in a simulation that's controlled by AI, and that we're only being revealed what's capable right now by its choice?
I don't, Ken. I don't think we're in a simulation.
Oh boy, there we go. Now we got a whole day topic. Hey, Ken.
I do enjoy the Matrix movies, though.
Let's jump over to you. So what are the initial steps for a small business to begin using AI in their operations?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this all the time, and I think it's always one of the best, if not the very best place to start. And that's to focus on the problems that you have, that you need to have solved. And then look and see, is AI an option? I mean, if you just kind of do some searches and browse around, if you hate reconciling your books for accounting, there's probably an AI solution that somebody's put together already out there for you. So if that's a big pain for you, there's probably something that somebody has put together. Whether it's good or not, you're going to have to figure out. But looking at the problems, I think that you need to have solved is really a great starting point. I think, experimenting, AI is not going to be perfect, but humans aren't perfect, right? So I think we expect, well, we can't do this on our website. We can't, like Paul mentioned, having a bot maybe answer questions. Two things. One is some people, they categorically dismiss it because they think, well, that's not authentic. That's not a human. Get over it. People don't care. Get over it. Authenticity is still critical, and it will come into play if you do it right. Now, if you just throw everything over to the bot and let the bot do it, yeah, you're not going to have authenticity. Don't not do it because you're worried about that it doesn't come across as a human. People are accustomed to this already. I mean, this has only been prominent in the last several months, and people have already adapted. We talked about it on a show a couple of weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, where people actually prefer AI written responses to reviews. We've been using chat type technology for a long time. It's just the AI makes it more accessible and maybe makes it faster and maybe a little bit more comprehensive than what we've been doing before. So don't let the fear of this prevent you from sticking your toes in the water. But also don't assume that it's the answer for everything, which I think a lot of people think, oh, well, I can just, put this in and have AI write my blog posts and I'll stick them on my website and I'm all good. Well, now you're no longer authentic. And so that's where authenticity comes into play. So you got to be reasonable about this stuff. It's not perfect, but I love to use AI for ideation. Instead of me trying to figure out, 10 great blog post titles, I think that's a great example of using, AI, putting in a prompt and having it generate some blog post titles, or even outlining the structure of a blog post, maybe even pulling in some content that you feed. And again, it's all driven based on the quality prompts and the information that's been provided and the learning that it's received. But I think there are a lot of different ways that you can do it. You have to test, you have to trust but verify. Put something in place, let it run. It's going to give wrong answers occasionally. Human beings do the same thing. What do you treat it the same way? If a human being gives you the wrong answer, you're gonna, and that, like, let's say somebody answers the phone, and they're typically turning away business opportunities because they don't think you want to do a certain type of business, or you don't want to go to a particular location, and you hear a call recording of that, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. No, we want to have those conversations with clients and look at those potential business opportunities. What would you do? You would talk to that person who's answering your phone, and you would provide some level of training and guidance to them to help them give a better answer. It's exactly what you have to do with AI. So anybody who thinks that it's good out of the box and just runs, it's a big mistake. You're taking a massive risk, but don't let that stop you from using it. Because as Ian and Paul and Jeff, you've already mentioned, there are a lot of really nice benefits that you can start to find. So I think defining little projects that you can measure, track, tweak, optimize, get that good feedback loop so that you're using it to constantly improve. Just like, it's really, what it does is it gives us the ability to have access to maybe more data to process than we conveniently typically have, and synthesize that in a way that maybe we wouldn't make some of those connections. But you still have to go in and verify that's the answer. So
yeah. Let me just add something real quick. This is an observation I've had with some people I know in business who have decided to go the self-serve AI route rather than having some like a marketing expert help them. One of the observation is just what you were saying, Ken. Like, it's like a giant experiment for them, right? They're like, I want to save money. I don't want to pay a marketer. I'm going to get AI to create content because they've heard content is magic, right?
Right.
What's interesting is what you're talking about, where you use AI as an experiment, but then you measure and then go back and optimize, right? One of the biggest gaps I see right now with that philosophy with small business owners is that they don't actually have the measurement tools. They're not equipped to actually measure the success or failure of the things they're testing, right? They have access to a free or a low-cost AI tool like ChatGPT to help them create some content, but they don't actually know how to measure. They don't have the tools to measure, nor the expertise to even understand like what's happening with my SEO, my ranking, my website. Our conversions up, our conversions down. All they would know is my phone's ringing or it's not ringing, right? Yeah.
No, that's a great point. You have to have, at this point, you have to have a decent amount of knowledge or access to somebody who has that knowledge to trust and verify that what you're getting from AI is actually accurate and up to date, or relatively up to date. If you're trying to use AI to solve something that changes very quickly and dynamically, it's not going to be the greatest solution for you, because again, as Jeff pointed out, it's relying on data that's been collected in databases for its training. That is not real time. It's not even close to real time. It's getting better all the time, but it's not close to real time. And so, if you're in a world where what you do is fairly evergreen, meaning it's consistent over time, for long periods of time anyway, then AI can be really beneficial for you. But if you're in a very rapidly changing dynamic environment, it's going to be a challenge. I think, I mean, for us, we talk about marketing. There are so many great applications, I think, for marketing, obviously, but also, Ian, as you mentioned, I think medical is really going to be exciting stuff. So it depends on the nature of your business, how much AI is going to come into play. But if you're a roofer and you need to get more appointments booked on your website in a more efficient way, AI can be a really good, helpful tool. If you're, trying to provide better diagnoses of medical conditions or dental conditions, AI is going to, provide maybe even more sophisticated capabilities. So it really just depends on what you do. But chances are there's a pretty good application for AI in your business today already.
So that's a good segue. Let's jump to the next topic, which is AI and marketing and content creation. So Ian, how can AI assist in creating and curating content for small businesses?
Yeah, I love this question, Jeff. Thanks for lobbing me a nice slow pitch ball there. I mean, by far, content creation is probably the most mature aspect of AI right now. And it's because we as marketers, so Chat GPT has only really been a hip, buzzy place to be and to try out for like a year, right? It only publicly launched in November of 2022, but then in March of 2023, it became really public, right? People started playing with it. They opened it up to the masses so that we could train it, right? So, but marketers have been playing with some of these tools for years. Like, we've been testing them, we've been trying them. One of the easiest or low-hanging fruits that you can try is to ask an AI to write some content related to a subject. And so even though AI is very young, I feel like this is one of the most mature places to start. And you can create content ideas. Again, it's based on whatever information people have fed into it. So, just like when ChatGPT first launched and you would ask, well, who's the president? And it was wrong, right? They've fixed some of that because they've retrained it. But you do need to have some smarts in this area to understand, why am I creating this content and what should it be about? But it can create some
the right content.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the key part, Ken. You can ask it, help me create a content plan for this business that targets these people, and it will do an okay job. You won't, unless you have expertise in the area, you won't be able to scrutinize the results very well, which is the biggest gap here. But I think it can help with that, what you talked about, Ken, ideation, right? It can help create something and give you kind of a kickstart. So I've had this, maybe you guys have as well. You have a task to do. You're working on a strategic plan for a client and you're having a bit of a slow day. You're just banging your head against the wall trying to come up with ideas. So you throw this challenge into ChatGPT or one of the other tools and just ask it for some ideas. And that just starts your creativity and your ideation process going. So I find that very, very powerful. And I would say it's great at creating and writing drafts. So if you're trying to create, say, a blog post, an article, a press release, emails, right? Lead nurturing emails, social posts, it can get you, I would say, 70% of the way. Do not take it as a finished product out of the tool. We've all seen people do that. It's usually disastrous. Just to share a quick little story, and this is on the video side. So video is actually a very exciting area of content development with AI, because it by far is the most cost prohibitive type of content any of us can create as businesses. It's the richest type of content. The beauty of video content is that you can repurpose it into so many different forms, right? Because it is the richest form. You've got audio, you've got visual. So you can start to slice and dice that content. But there's some tools out there that have been around for a little while now that we've been playing with, and some of you guys have as well, where you tell the AI, this is the company, this is the reason I need this video. This is our call to action that we're trying to get people to do. We're focusing on this particular service. Help me create a script for this video, and then populate the video with some stock video footage, and then put in some subtitles. There's some tools that are super sophisticated that can do this. And we have one client that's kind of jumped on board with this. We've been doing it for a while for our own agency and even for some of our clients. But we scrutinize the results very carefully when they come out of the machine, because rarely, if ever, are they anywhere close to a finished product, right? I would say the closest we get is 70% finished. And then we have to do a lot of editing, really modify it, review it, improve it for human consumption, because that's who it's for, right? But we recently had a client that jumped on board with a particular tool. They went through this process. They sent me 3 videos. They were like, hey, Ian, can you check out these videos and give us some feedback? And when I watched the videos, one was pretty good, but I didn't understand the purpose of it. I'm like, where are you going to use this from a marketing perspective? So that's a fail from my perspective, because you have to have a reason for creating content. AI is not really going to give that to you. And then the other videos had AI can take things very literally. So things like, give us your bookkeeping so you can sleep at night like a baby. So it shows a baby sleeping, but you're actually speaking to a professional, and they're the ones that need to be sleeping like a baby, not the baby. Anyway, that was just an example, but there were lots of them like that. So I think there's lots of opportunity there for content creation. It's just a matter of, first of all, knowing what the purpose of is the content that you're creating. Like, why am I creating this content? How am I going to use this content to actually benefit my business? How are we going to distribute it? And then figure out which is the best format of content that we're going to create, whether it's blog posts, social posts, videos, whatever you need, right? But without that strategic guidance, I think you can really go off the rails. The last thing I just wanted to mention too, and this is kind of a mashup of both content and paid advertising with AI. If you do any kind of digital advertising as a business, you know that Google Ads and some of the other ad platforms have been playing with AI for a while now, like their Performance Max campaigns and stuff like that. But one of the interesting things is, and I've mentioned this, when we've talked about ads on our podcast before, but I think it's really important for the business owner to understand is that when you get AI recommendations, some of those recommendations can be really, really good for an ad campaign. They might help you actually write, some descriptions, or it will look at which ads are outperforming you, and it might provide you some guidance of how to write, headlines and that kind of stuff better. The image recommendations are often very bad. But I would say you have to be very careful, and you have to remember who owns the AI that's giving you recommendations and what is their end game. Their end game is to get you to spend more. So every time you get those recommendations, funny enough, it's telling you to raise your budget. It's telling you to do certain things that benefit Google, but not always you. So that it's important to remember those kind of things, but check it out. Be strategic about the content you're creating, but AI can be a tremendous help to you. I think all of us on this podcast use a lot of AI tools to help us create content, whether it's from the ideation process, planning out calendars, doing social posts. I mean, social posts are turn and burn types of content. If AI can help you create content for social posts, that's a huge win for any business, I think.
And you keep using the word tools, which I think is very appropriate. That's what we've got to look at when I got to tell clients we got to look at AI as a tool. If you just go into ChatGPT and say, write a blog post for me, you're going to get what I call the mediocre middle. You're going to get the summation of a whole lot of things that are out there and already said in the world. And Google's already said they want new, original, authoritative content. So that's only going to come if you use the AI for the ideation, use it for the draft, I think you said, but then you've got to inject what John Jantz calls the context and the, everyone calls the authenticity into it. You've got to make it your own, and it can cut down on your workload, essentially transform you from a writer into an editor, but you still got to do that editing and that value add that's going to be then rewarded.
And remember that, like, even some of the platforms like Google as a search platform and some of the other search platforms that are integrating AI, like they're measuring and trying to figure out, like, how much do we care if it's AI created content? First of all, can we know it's AI created content? And then do we care if it's AI created content? So there's been all these kind of waves that all of us have been surfing from a marketing standpoint, is, because Google initially kind of came down hard on AI content, and then they kind of took their foot off the gas of that a little bit, and instead changed their tune a little bit and said, well, if it's relevant, if it gives a your own point of view, then that's okay. But it's also monitoring, like, what words does AI use over and over and over and over? Because if you research, if you Google that, you'll actually find that AIs tend to use certain words that humans wouldn't normally use,
yep.
right? So there are tells for sure.
Yep. Ken, let's jump to you for the next question. Just real quick overview. How can AI help in repurposing existing content to maximize its reach?
Yeah. So 2 quick things before I answer that. One is, there's a meme out there right now that is, I can have AI help me write a blog post, but what I really want it to do is help me do the laundry and get the laundry done, or something like that.
Sounds nice.
So right now, we are talking about a limited number of use cases and practical applications where AI can help. Marketing is certainly one of those, and repurposing is certainly one of those. The other thing I want to point out real quickly is, we talk about it like AI is just adopted everywhere in society, but it's really not. I mean, when you look at the total number of humans in the world and the people who are using AI and actively working with AI to create AI solutions, it's a very, 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 very small group. Now, there are more people who are using the products, but so anyway, I just wanted to point that out. So with repurposing, what's great about it is, Ian talked about video content. Sure, you can use AI to help you create video content. Even if you don't, you can use AI to repurpose that video content. It can take and slice and dice the video, highlight key points, render it from landscape to portrait so that it's suitable for Reels or YouTube Shorts. Package it as short clips that again fit the model of what TikTok or Instagram, Facebook Reels, or YouTube Shorts are looking for. It can even break out, and clip sections and still keep it in landscape format if you wanted to stick it on regular YouTube or put it on your website. It can go through, it can find key points again that it can put on to social media posts graphically and build those so that you've got a library all of a sudden of 5 or 6 key points that were talked about as individual posts or individual videos, either one, that you can use for social media posting. So the repurposing, I think right now is one of the things that is the biggest time saver, in terms of marketing, because the quality of that product, those products are pretty good. And even if they're not, and you have to throw them away and push the button to regenerate and try again, it's still a fraction of the time of what it used to take to be able to do this. So I think that's really cool. Some of this is automated and some of it's artificial intelligence. People talk about it now as it's all artificial intelligence. So I'm not going to nitpick, but when you have a video, one of the things you didn't want to do is you want to have that transcribed. now that gives you the really great basis for a blog post from that transcription. That transcription process is not AI. Now, AI may be used in it or it may not be used in it. AI might be used in it to go through and clip out the ums and the ahs and all that kind of stuff, and eliminate stuff like that. But the actual transcription of the raw content probably is an AI. So, you can use it. You could repurpose a series of videos and turn it into a course that you offer. You can use AI to extract key points and use that to build testing criteria for your classes. So there are so many different uses of these repurposing tools. That's one of the two big areas that I think are, I get the most excited about with AI, and I'll share my other one here in another answer to another question.
Paul, Ian, you want to jump in on the repurposing question?
I love the repurposing options that are available, and I hope that they continue. I'm confident they'll continue to improve. Like, we've been playing with content repurposing tools like what Ken's talking about, where it takes long form video, slice and dices it. I have to say, like, the results aren't spectacular, and part of that is because as humans, we want kind of punchy comments that really draw people into the videos. And I haven't found the tools are exceptionally good at taking, like, this podcast, for instance, and then pulling out, like, here's the most, even if you ask it to pull out the most powerful clips, it rarely does at this point. Like, I still think a lot of human intervention needs to happen. But I think the idea of it is so good because that's such a time consuming task. And I think that's where, the repurposing can be so helpful to the business is taking that time consumption and bringing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, repurposing tool, this is the most important content in this entire video. So when you're doing your job, please make sure that you highlight my face saying this.
Well, and Ken, actually, that's an interesting point too, is that some of the tools that integrate AI, they don't, I'm sure they have some training that's going on in the background, right? Because if you select a particular clip, maybe it's training the AI, but a lot of times we don't even know because it's AI integrated into the tool. But some of that stuff, like, and I would say there are feedback mechanisms where you can give thumbs up or thumbs down for some results. But a lot of tools, because they're so, new, they don't have that great feedback mechanism. And I think you're right. I think that, you were joking, but I think that's really important because we are the ones that are training the tool to ultimately replace us as the thinker in some of these situations.
That's actually a good point, Ian. The old data processing concept of garbage in, garbage out applies. And
yeah,
I don't know why it's such an aha moment for me now. I typically don't bother with the thumbs up and thumbs down, but the more we do that, the more we're going to get better results, right?
Yeah.
Because we are, as you said, training. We've been playing around with repurposing. We get a whole quarter's worth of content out of a half a day worth of ideation and recording some videos. It's pretty amazing. And like you said, all the different formats.
Yeah.
And I've got a small project going right now where I'm taking blog articles for a client and turning them into LinkedIn articles. So yeah, it's really, it's a tool. I can't take what it gives me verbatim and just copy paste, but it really cuts down the workload, the time, the efficiency.
Yeah.
And we're going to go to
tools real quick. These tools will help you solve the distribution problem as well, which I think Ian kind of alluded to.
Yes.
You can have these tools not only slice and dice and create the content, but actually schedule the distribution and syndication of the content.
Optimize the schedule based on when people are, yeah. Paul, I think I need to apologize because I set the first topic up with you as the lead off and the second topic up with you as the trail. So hopefully you're still awake. Do you want to, before I jump to your question, do you want to add anything else to this one?
No, I don't think so.
All right, so now you're on. How can AI enhance a small business's SEO and advertising strategies?
Yeah, I've actually already kind of touched on this. And Google is using AI and forcing AI on you, whether you like it or not, especially within the Google Ads platform. I mean, you can turn some of it off, but they're using AI to adjust your bids, to allocate your budget. But you can use AI to help with your competitor research, uh, keyword gap research. That's all pretty much AI driven if you're using any kind of tool. Uh, there's tools out there. You can take your existing content, you can use it to generate new content, like we talked about. You can take your existing content and put it into one of these tools, and it'll say, well, you might want to change this or that, or you might, here's a different title that AI would suggest. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's noticed this, is that you type a question into Google and you're starting to see more and more that the top result is the AI overview, which Google generates. So it's here, it's not going away.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, like I said, we've touched on a lot of it, and it can, like I said, competitor research, user trends. That's, Google tracks everything you do, so that data is out there, and AI can help you use it.
Well, and part of the beauty is, with SEO in particular, I mean, it's a massive data game, right?
Right.
So leveraging AI to go analyze all of that data, find the gaps, find what needs to be done to plug the gaps and to leapfrog somebody else who may be ranking above you. AI's got a lot of real potential for that.
All right, should we move on to the next topic?
Yes.
Let's
So
do
this
it.
one is future trends in preparing for AI integration. So this maybe gets a little more speculative, but let's start with Ken on this one. Ken, what are the emerging AI technologies that small businesses should watch out for?
I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because honestly, I think businesses need to find a way to take advantage of what's here right now, and focus on that instead. This is all speculative. Nobody knows how this is going to shake out, but it's pretty easy to say image and video improvements are going to be happening very soon. There's a lot of work behind that right now. Using human faces is a little awkward, with some of these platforms, but it's getting better all the time. That's an area that's going to be dramatically changing. Voice search recognition, voice cloning, I think is, and then being able to create a script to make it sound like, somebody that you don't like politically, religiously. Unfortunately, so many different ways that it could be used as a bad thing is very, very real and is going to be happening. From a marketing perspective, I think you can use it for positive effects as well, where if you've got somebody like a business owner who's camera shy, didn't really want to get out there and talk, if they wanted to clone their voice and then have AI write a script, and you train that script and then deliver a voiceover that you can put a video with, then that there's some potential there, and there's already a lot of progress there. These things are just getting better all the time. Beyond that, I don't really want to get into a whole lot more, because I think, like I said, I think there's plenty right now that small businesses need to start thinking about how they're going to adapt and use now, and let some of these other things mature and grow. And I would say let other people test them, because these aren't game changers for most of the businesses we work with. So don't get distracted by shiny objects. Focus on the tools that are here and now.
Yeah, I think for me, and you hit on, I think the video generation is one of the really cool ones. And of course, that brings up the possibilities of deep fakes and creating it. Right now, you can tell there's some video generation that exists. You can train it on your voice, on your mannerisms, and it can actually generate a video of you after you give it a script. But you can tell that it was AI generated. Is that good enough for most uses? Sure. It's easy to tell it's not, somebody faking a deep fake though of you saying something you didn't say.
But voice is a little more dangerous because, voice is delivered over a device where you're relying on the quality of the speaker. And so if you've got somebody using deep fakes for voices, and I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, but when they're hearing that over the speaker of a phone, you may not be able to easily tell the difference. And that's led to a lot of scams and, things like that. There's malicious opportunity. That's always going to be there. People are always going to find ways to exploit technology for selfish gain. But I think there's also opportunities for people to leverage the same or similar technologies for doing really good things for their business.
Yeah, I know. But I think the ability to create videos when you're not really adept at recording videos and don't want to hire an expensive editor is really cool. And some of the language processing is only going to get better, right? Right now, like we said earlier, don't take something out of ChatGPT and use it directly. It may get to the point in a few years where you can, but the language processing as it gets trained more, as you train it on your voice, your way of expressing things is only going to get better. There is, one I'm kind of tracking though, I think as voice search becomes more important. We saw with the advent of smartphones that things shifted to mobile, and then people started talking, instead of typing their search phrases, they started talking, and that shifted the phrases that were used. I think we're going to see more of that, and then maybe opening it up onto, digital assistant devices. She who will not be named, because I've got one in my office and she'll answer if I call her out. People are going to start asking those things. So I think we're going to see some incremental shifts, and it will happen, in time, and I think we'll be ready for it. Paul, earlier in the show, we talked about, things to think about. How do you prepare? How do you get ready for moving into AI? Let's kind of flip it around a little bit. Are there any lessons that we can learn from small businesses that have already successfully integrated AI?
Well, if you're accept that it's here to stay. A lot of small businesses, like Ken said earlier, they're dismissive of it. They don't want to get involved with it, but it's here and your competitors are going to use it. So accept it. And if you don't, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, and don't think it's all or nothing. Start slow, just familiarize yourself with it, learn about it. Focus on results, but recognize that it's not perfect. It's going to make mistakes. Like Ken said earlier, it's going to give wrong answers on occasion, just like people do. And decide, is this something that you want to do in-house? And it's probably not, but because, like you said, garbage in, garbage out, the prompts are extremely important. Every result you get is depending on those prompts. So do you want to spend the time and money training a staff member to be adept at this? Or do you want to have someone that already knows how to work with it to do these things for you? Mm-hmm. I would say those are the biggest things.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There's probably a lot more businesses that have integrated AI than that have become experts on AI, right?
Right.
And you do that by getting help. It's the other point you made at the beginning, I think, is a good one. It's, the analogy I use, it's an oncoming train, and you can either get, out of the way of it and watch it go by you, or you can get run over it and devastated, or you can jump on board and go for the ride and see where it takes you. And I'm kind of in the latter camp. I think there's some pretty cool stuff going on. That kind of leads us into the next question, though, Ian. What ethical concerns? I think we hit on this a little bit earlier, but it's worth kind of summarizing. What ethical concerns should small businesses consider when using AI, and how can they address them?
Yeah. I think the biggest one is data privacy and security. Like, you truly, when you sign up for a lot of AI tools, it will tell you that your data isn't secure, and that you're basically sharing it with the masses, or at least putting it into the database in the back end. Now, some tools that integrate AI will have a different type of data privacy built in, where it says it doesn't share the information. So it's up to you as the business to really look into that and be very careful, because especially if you're in any kind of medical field, man, like, you got to be super, super careful with HIPAA and some of the other compliance issues. So be very careful about what you share. I think that the second biggest ethical concern that a lot of us have is just copyright infringement and ownership. So who actually owns the information that the AI spits out? And what if the AI integrates your creative that you've done in the past somehow into a new creation, right? So whether it's visual, whether it's type, written, whatever it is, I think those are all ethical things. Transparency in how AI makes decisions and processes it does, that's a big one. The other thing, I think, and this is more on a general landscape, but is the information that the AI is spitting out true? Like, who's going to monitor that, right? And how do you, as a person, I think this is extremely important from a social interaction standpoint, is, how do you know what's true? And how do AIs avoid biases, right? There's programmers behind the scenes. There's businesses that own the AIs. There's people training the AIs. You could start a social movement that would probably mistrain an AI if you got enough people training it in the wrong way, right? And there's groups out there that would do stuff like that. So I think those are all really, really important. And then if you start to expand AI further, how do you make sure it doesn't infringe on customer rights and human rights? How is data being encrypted? Where is it stored? How is it being stored? How do you get consent of people's data in order to leverage AI to use that data, right? Then there's privacy policies, data. How do you anonymize the data within AI? And then, of course, we hear it in, government policy makers are trying to figure out now, like, how do we appropriately legislate control of AI? And I think all of that's kind of in the ethical world, but it's so new. None of us really, we're trying to do the best we can as we move through this. But we're obviously trying not to make mistakes as we go as users of AI. But I can't imagine what it must be on the other side of the companies creating AI and how they are trying to be very careful with it, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't end up in a simulation like Ken started this conversation off with.
You don't like the Borgs or the Cylons?
No, man, no.
I think you had a couple of good points. I can give an example on the. I was going to give an example. It just blanked out on it because Ken got me thinking about Borgs and Cylons. The training. When Google started bringing in what they called search generative experience, now the AI overviews, people were asking things like, "How many rocks should I eat every day?" And it answered. And it answered because there was a satire piece in a geological journal. But it didn't know it was satire because the AI doesn't understand humor. It doesn't understand satire. And it was a very, very limited data point. So that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You got to look at what comes out of it. We're still the critical thinkers in the loop, right? We're still the ones who've got to go, does that make sense? Or no, I'm going to cut that out. No, I want to add this. I want to, emphasize that.
I hope we're the critical thinkers.
The bias in the algorithms, if all you trained your AI on was, Dr. Seuss books, then everything that came out of it would sound like Dr. Seuss, right? So the training, the bias that's built in. What's that, Ken?
It would be fun.
It would be fun. I'm pretty sure there probably is a transform that'll do that.
Yeah.
But that you gotta pay attention to what's the data going in. Is it representative? Google with Gemini, I think, said they were going to start training on Reddit. They were going to use Reddit answers to train their AI. And there's a lot of stuff in Reddit that is wrong. It's people being trolls. It's satire, and they're going to use it to train their language model. I'm not sure how that's going to work. But yeah, I think there's some interesting points in there. We are coming up on the hour, and we said we wanted to cut a little short. Why? Because we're all going to jump on a webinar that an AI company is putting out. So very appropriate. Anything else anyone wants to hit on before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to point out, I think the second most exciting thing, not 1 and 2 is irrelevant. The 2 things that I'm excited about, I've already talked about one. The second one is the ability to convert leads when people are on somebody's website and get them to actually book appointments or make purchases. That's a real power of AI, and I think it's a need that I almost every business needs. It's real, it's powerful, and if you're not doing it, your customers are going to be, or your consumers are going to be doing it very soon. Your competitors are going to be doing it very soon.
But make sure you train the bots. I've seen those go off the rails so fast because people don't train them properly.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
well, I
get using them, guys.
Yeah, play around with it. Have fun. As Ken mentioned, the tools are either free or very inexpensive. They can get very expensive. We use a suite that does, hundreds, our total bills probably approaching $1,000 a month on AI tools right now. But to get started and play around, you can do that easily. So I think this is a good place to wrap up. I'd like to thank each of you for sharing your insights, and thank you all in our audience for joining us today. Live long and prosper. Is that the?
That's what I was trying to do. Yeah, I can only do it on one hand, so I guess that just means maybe I'm half Vulcan. I don't know.
Only half, yeah. Well, Spock was only half Vulcan, so yeah. We digress. So anyway, we hope you found this valuable. If so, please share the link to it with other business owners who could benefit from it. Be sure to follow us or subscribe to this podcast. If you found it as a one-off, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're on the major platforms. And until next week, how's that go, Ian?
Keep calm and mark it on, folks.
Thanks, everyone.
From people that are marketing.